It's my great pleasure to welcome on stage with me somebody who doesn't need any introduction, but I'm going to give one anyway. He is an actor, creator, writer, producer, winner of 3 Golden Globes, 2 Primetime Emmys, and 7 BAFTAs. You've seen him on screen as David Brent, as Alan Millman, and now as Tony Johnson in the new series Afterlife, which is on Netflix and was dropped on Netflix about 3 months ago, in which he plays a grieving widower who is still trying to find out whether there's a reason to live or not, I think.
Funny stuff.
Well, in fact, I mean, so Ricky Gervais, everyone.
Hi.
Ricky, you've mentioned before in other interviews and talks that everything is semi-autobiographical for you in terms of your work. So in terms of Afterlife, since this is your latest show, is this something that's drawn from your own experience?
Yeah, we, in your work, you sort of reflect where you are in life and what you've gone through to some degree. Also, I deal in realism, so it probably means more to me than some. I write about what I know because I suppose I'm nervous about. I don't have to research anything. Do you know what I mean? It is laziness, yes, but also you can be caught out. I think if you research something, it doesn't feel like yours. I worked in an office for 10 years and wrote about it. Then I was in media for 5 years and did extras about that. All my family were carers, so I wrote about, with Derek. Usually, the odd thing I think, particularly in sitcom, because I think it's the most important thing, character comes first. David Brent existed way before The Office, Sex and Derek. But the concept sort of came first. Imagine if you lost everything, and you didn't care about living or not, you could do anything you wanted. It's like a superpower, and you could always fall back on death. You've always got suicide. So that was the idea, and then I thought, what's losing everything? Well, the love of your life. And it all came from there. And then what would you do? Well, so the seed of the idea was, I suppose, a verbal vigilante. I wouldn't want to do guns and things like that because it's unrealistic, and then it became more and more a study in sort of grief. And how you deal with it.
Which is something that you've also gone through.
I have. I don't think I have. I've never suffered from depression. I've gone through grief, obviously. Yes, of course. I've lost my parents and friend and all that. But and I think I might be thinking that because of how it's gone down. I didn't sit down and thought, well, I know I'm going to do a program about grief. But the thing that's come out of it more than anything is the response. I don't just mean the amount of people, and that's been big in there, but that's probably a reflection on the fact that Netflix have 150 million subscribers and I'm on Twitter. But it's the intensity of the response. People coming up to me in the street more than ever before, and the first thing they say is, I lost my partner a year ago or 3 months ago. And you suddenly realise that everyone's grieving, but they don't usually tell a stranger.
And you weren't expecting this kind of
response. I wasn't expecting that at all.
I mean, given that it is a universal theme.
I didn't think it was the most important thing about the show. For me, it was a dramatic device to deliver, jokes, drama, whatever.
Right.
I didn't think it was about that. It was a circumstance. So I was shocked. But then again, I think if you do something realistically and it's uncompromised, it will resonate more with people. And I think everyone starts off with these good intentions. They go, right, I'm going to do something just for me, uncompromised. I don't care what people think I'm doing. And then someone says, if you take out a few C words, we can put it on at 9 o'clock. And they go, well, you shouldn't do that because those are very militant. You shouldn't talk about that because we'll have to write some letters. And soon it goes down, and it's like everything else now. So I think as I get older, I don't want to try and be bigger or richer or win more awards. I just want to go, is this the most honest I've ever been? That's what sort of drives me now.
Does this actually feel like the most honest of all your work so far because it's dealing with such a profound...
No, I can be more honest next time. I guess so. I guess because I've always dealt with taboo subjects because again, I wanted to take the audience to places it hadn't been before, and I love discomfort around the subject. I think people, this myth that there's certain things you shouldn't joke about, which is nonsense. People get offended when they mistake the subject of a joke with the actual target, and they're not necessarily the same, particularly when you're dealing with satire or irony. And there's no subject you shouldn't joke about. It depends on the joke. So it excites me, particularly, I mean, with stand-up, you know, you mention a subject, a really contentious, scary subject, and you can feel the tension in the room, and you take them through a scary forest, and out the other side, and it's good. It's like going to the gym. You don't look forward to it, but I did it. Exactly, yeah, let's have a drink. I did it. Yeah.
And certainly Afterlife takes viewers and its characters on a journey.
And it should be. I think that is drama. And that's the other myth. I don't like this distinction between comedy and drama. They're the same thing. You know, traditionally, 500 years ago, the only distinction was a drama ends between comedy and tragedy. A tragedy ends in a funeral, and a comedy ends in a wedding. That was it, you know. And we've suddenly pushed them. But I think comedy without drama is a pun. It's a nothing. It's a decapitated one-liner. And in context, it can be have so much more gravitas and resonate more.
In terms of the honesty that you want to put out there, and then also to use the words you want to use and not compromise. Now you're working with Netflix.
Yeah.
Has that just been essentially carte blanche, where you can do everything you
want?
want?
Sort of, to a degree, but so firstly, I've been lucky enough to always get final edit. You know, I sort of demanded it when I was a nobody. With the office and got it because we were low risk, no one cared. It didn't cost anything. It cost 120,000 to make.
Wow.
Right. It went on a Monday at 9:30 in July. I mean, that is the worst. On its focus group, it scored the lowest ever score, joint bottom with women's bowls. So they went, yeah, whatever.
Congratulations.
Yes. Yeah. And then once you get it you get it and you demand it. But to get it, there's always been that compromise, which is usually was viewers. You know, BBC Two, not BBC One. Channel 4, not ITV. HBO, not NBC. Then Netflix come along and go, right, we don't interfere. We've got more viewers than anyone, and deep pockets. That's 3 on the list. That's number 3 on the list. Right? But again, that would be a compromise. They said, you can say what you want, a billion people to watch it, but you've got to do it for free. That would be a compromise, right? And I'd consider it. No, I wouldn't. But for me to get final edit and then go crazy, for me to, Netflix have paid me, I'm going to stand in a field and shout the C word for half an hour. They wouldn't make it. They're not a charity. If you don't deliver, they drop you. It's not like you can do what you want and you can do it forever and they keep paying you more. They're a business and they go, no, didn't work. Oh, okay, cheers. So I've still got to deliver. I still want to be populist to a degree. But I think people think that being populist is doing what's been done before and pleasing everyone. It's not. There's 7 billion people in the world. You don't need a very high percentage to be a huge success. And I think being a cult everywhere is always bigger than being the biggest thing in one territory. Always.
And Netflix certainly gives you that.
Exactly. And there's people huge in Britain, they can't, stand-ups, they can't sell a ticket outside Britain. But if you do theatres everywhere, you sell to millions. So I think if you do it for yourself and it's uncompromised, someone, somewhere, in every country will go, that's my favourite show. And that builds and builds.
Well, of course, the immediate measures of success that we can see is that it's been renewed for a second series, which you're already working on now in terms of finalizing. But Netflix also is notorious for not giving numbers. I mean, do you have any sense of feedback besides the people who are coming up to you on the street, which is great, but just in terms of overall reach, do you have any sense? Are they sharing with you how it's going?
Yeah, I know.
share with us.
The fact, I can't, and everyone's very pleased, and that's why they reviewed it straight away, So, I mean, that's the it's obvious that if it wasn't doing well, they wouldn't be doing it. As I say, they're a business. They don't do it because they like me. You know?
Because you have final edit, even in the other places that you work, for example, the BBC or HBO. Does it
Well, I
actually...
did then. I don't know if I would now. I'd probably still HBO, but I don't know if I would get real final edit in the BBC. I mean, even when I choose a clip from this thing, I've had to talk producers down from a ledge. I go, the clip will be fine. It's fine. You know, sometimes people they want a reason, they want an argument. I've said, I'll write the letters, I'll reply to the letters. Because people are scared of getting in trouble and losing their job. Because they're victims of social justice warriors as well. And sometimes they want an easy life. So you have to say to them, this will be fine. And also the other thing to remember is, just because you're offended, it doesn't mean you're right. I've never had a complaint upheld. You know, a complaint means nothing. You can't say anything that someone somewhere won't be offended by or complain about. I once tried to explain this. I tweeted something, and it was, why did the chicken cross the road? Fuck you, dude, my chicken died today. Complain if you want, but so what? I didn't like it. Good, don't watch it.
I know that this has been something that you've had to deal with throughout your career as a comedian in terms of people saying that they take offense or that something is offensive.
Yeah.
Of course, we're now in a really particular cultural moment on both sides of the Atlantic where truly vitriolic or racist, sexist, whatever you want to call it, things are being said and being enabled by even the top public figures in the land, whether it's President Trump or someone else.
Yeah.
Does that, especially with comedy, do you feel you're walking on more eggshells than before? Is that line a lot harder to find?
Well, it's been muddied.
Truly...
It's been muddied by, as you say, people with big platforms doing it, and some people want to defend freedom of speech to say awful things, but that doesn't mean. But you know, some people are arseholes. You know, it's not against the law to be a complete arsehole. But the good thing about freedom of speech is if someone says something and they're an arsehole, you can call them an arsehole back. That's the good thing. It's a good system.
Well, and taking it back to creatively in terms of what you've done at BBC, HBO, and Netflix, because you've had final edit, although Netflix now is a great place for you to wind up, is it really that different from what you were able to enjoy at the other places? And so you have the freedom.
No, because the finished result was I'm happy with, and so if you, I was more militant, I was more scared. And when I first started, I'd had horror stories, so I didn't even like an executive saying, "Oh, that's good." I'd go, "What's it got to do with you?" Right? But now I'm more secure, and so I do. I ask Twitter what they think of things. You know, it's a. I
can crowdsource.
Yeah, I do, and you know, stand-up is the biggest committee in the world. It's evolution by natural selection. You know, there's 5,000 people laughing at the bits they like and not laughing at the bits they don't. So eventually you lose the bits that no one laughs at, and soon everyone everywhere is laughing at everything. So that is a pretty good focus group. And it's different to TV because with TV you do your thing, hopefully, uncompromised, you do your best guess and you put it out there and there's nothing you can do about it. With stand-up, it's more like a science than an art because it either works or it doesn't. And you can chip a bit more away from the statue. And you can, by the end of 50 gigs, it's pretty much perfect. You know, and it works everywhere. I could play Tuesday in Manchester, Wednesday in Stockholm, and the readout would be exactly the same. You put it over, it'd be exactly the same. All the gasps and the laughs and the round of applause and the people walking out happen at exactly the same place. But you know, when you're working, I still run it, but you still want advice, you know. So I'll go out for a jog and I'll come back with an idea and I'll come say to my girlfriend, "What do you think of this?" And she'll say, "Please don't do that in public." and I know it's good.
So that's the benchmark. Actually, with your stand-up, I should say that you're on another tour right now with a new set, Supernature.
Yes, right.
Which is, it's not related to Humanity, your previous one at all.
No, but I mean, again, it's an excuse for me to get things off my chest, a pretense of being it being a lecture and definitive. I like that pomposity. I say a mild character, like I know everything. And of course, often I get the wrong thing. Now in this one, I go out and I do the first joke, and I say, that was irony. There's going to be a lot of that throughout the show. You've got to spot, that's where, me as a comedian, I say the wrong thing, and you laugh because you know what the right thing is, right? So sometimes I feel like, today, I tweeted something, and I said, there should be a sarcasm font on Twitter, because it's like, it's odd, it seems like a lost art. So it's me, I try and debunk the supernatural, and I say that nature's super enough. Again, that's the high concept. But then I go off on the usual tangents and taboo crunching.
But it's interesting that you say you can actually graph the responses that you get to comedy in terms of whether you're in Stockholm or Manchester, that you'll see the highs and lows at the same place.
Yeah.
But irony, for example, I know this now as an American living in London for so long. Irony is the currency of this country. In a way, it's not quite in the U.S. And
well, no, exactly. There's a myth that goes around that Americans don't get irony. That's nonsense. They get irony as good as anyone. It's obvious from their photo. What the difference is that two Americans meeting don't immediately do sarcasm and irony. Two Brits meeting will say that it's like saying, "Oh, nice haircut." But we can't. Americans will say that and they mean it. If Americans say that, they mean it. Like, first of all, I go, "What are you saying, mate?" We're not used to that. We're not used to sincerity. So, that's the difference. That the Americans don't use it all the time.
Yeah. That is a great haircut, by the way.
Thank you. I've had it for 34 years. It should be good now. Yeah.
Does the stand-up inform your fiction writing a lot? So that in terms of what we see in Afterlife, where there is, for example, I guess you could say a religious or spiritual character who's believes in God and thinks of an afterlife. Is that part of it?
They're different art forms. They're different mediums and different disciplines. But they're still done by me. They're still auteured by me. So just like with stand-up, where sometimes I say things I mean for comic effect, and sometimes I say things I don't mean for comic effect, and the audience should be clever enough to know which is which. Likewise, I think people mistake. They think that Tony says everything that I mean, whereas actually I've written all the characters. They're shared out. Like Anne on the bench, she says things I mean as well.
The spiritual one.
Yeah, exactly. Tony says things I mean, Lenny says things that I mean, and they all say things I don't mean as well. So I think it's odd to assume that I'm like Tony as opposed to all the other characters, or I'm like David Bain as opposed to all the other characters. You create this world. It's like a dream. You're every character in your dream. So it's sort of like that. I guess.
Basically, you're acting out in all of the characters.
Yeah, and you have to try and be balanced.
Right.
And you can't take the cool role for yourself. You can't always be Mr. Nice and win the day. Sometimes you've got to be the butt of the joke, or the arsehole, or the protagonist, or the idiot. Not everything Tony does is right. But that's what drama and fiction is. In fiction, we create our own heroes and villains as role play for the soul, and hopefully we can make it slightly fairer than real life. So our villains get their comeuppance, and our heroes are rewarded in some way. But sometimes that doesn't happen, just like real life.
I think this confusion, though, of creator with character is particularly easy to do in the case of someone like you who creates, acts, writes, does it all. And so everyone associates it's a completely auteur project, as you say. So I think it's very easy for people to have that sense that you are exactly what we see.
What is lazy is that, if you, again, if you deal in realism and you use your own face and tics and you don't dress up and call yourself Billy Bigger, people think, well, that's him saying that. Oh, he's David Bain. Oh no, he's not. He's Andy Millman. No, he's Derek. It's like I get it. I just just watch it. Just forget. And that's the problem. I think that if you're a famous actor, then people know who you. They think they know who you really are. So it can sometimes get in the way. I mean, the best actors are anonymous. It's like if every single thing was a new set of actors and then they had to be retired, it would be better in a way. You know what I mean? It would be more realistic. Right? You know? But why should we?
And so, and in that way, is stand-up actually an antidote to that for you, and that actually it is you. I mean, you
well, again, it's sort of me, but when I'm saying things for comic effect, things I don't mean, or it's even harder for people to believe that's not my views, because it's under my own name and I'm being like me. But they don't do that with actors. They don't look at Schindler's List and go, that Ray Fiennes is a bit racist. No, it's not really. You know, and I'm playing a character to a degree, stand-up.
Even in your stand-up?
I'm playing I think particularly in my stand-up, because my stand-up is more where I say things I don't really mean for comic effect. So, if anything, I'm
really going for the
oh yeah, I play very often a misinformed idiot, which I like to think I'm not, but I might be.
With Afterlife, because we are going into season 2, the setup is there, and we know that, or I've certainly seen written in other places that your preferred, I think, mode is to have 2 seasons, you know, and perhaps a special mode as well, which we did see with The Office.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Is that how you're also conceiving?
It is, for lots of reasons. Obviously, throughout my career, my laziness has sometimes been mistaken for integrity, which is great. So I do get bored easily. I do put all my eggs in one basket. I don't use a team of writers, which sort of dictates how many fresh ideas and how long it takes. I've got a backlog. You know, I'd rather do 8 series before I die than 1.
Right.
Just as an artist, really, it's fun. But mainly, I think it's a lovely. It's like an epic novel. I think 6 hours and a special. It's you pretty much, you know, gone through everything you can with these characters. As I'm getting older now, I might milk it a bit more.
It's interesting that you say 6 hours, and the reason I say that is because one of the advantages that some creators say that they have with Netflix or other similar companies and organizations is that, look, we don't have to stick to the 22-minute sitcom. No. We can actually have the freedom of format.
Yeah, and I did, and it turns out that 28 minutes is pretty much perfect.
So you said that is actually the conclusion of the company, because after
there was still everything I've done. You know, if I did The Office and Derek, all the episodes came in like 37 minutes, and you have to lose 10, and that happened. That happened again. You know, because you've got a little bit more leeway. That they don't have to be 27:30 for the BBC or 23. 50 for Channel 4, but it's pretty much there, you know. Particularly if you're doing an arc over 6 and you want a little bit of closure, 27 minutes is pretty perfect, I'd say. Particularly in comedy as well. If you've got more drama and more plot, then you can justify an extra couple of minutes. If you haven't got any of that, the best comedies, pure comedies, like things like The Simpsons, they're 22 minutes.
Right.
You know, so comedy plus a bit of plot and arc, 27 minutes. Right. I'd say.
And 2 series.
I'm making this up as I go along. This is just an opinion.
2 series and a special. Do you already have an Afterlife special brewing in your head?
I do. I do think that might be right, unless I can get some of the cast to help me write the 3rd series and just sit back and then just turn up. Well, I don't know.
Speaking of appearing in things that other people write, I mean, do you enjoy that too, or not really? Because
I do. I do. I treat it like a holiday. You know, you do. You know,
a paid holiday.
Yeah, I've popped up in things and they've been great. You know, but it's like even like hosting the Golden Globes 4 times. I loved writing all those things, and it's like 3 hours. It's like, that's not even a game of golf. It's just that it goes to 250 million. They think you remember more for that than the year you worked writing something, you know? But yeah, I mean, I'm not really an expert, but I do take parts that are irresistible. And you know, the first few years, well, I couldn't believe my luck, so I did pop up in my favourite shows of all time. You know, I did The Simpsons, Sesame Street, exactly, yeah. But my joy comes from creating something from scratch and finishing it and then sitting back. That's my real joy. And I think the times I've been hired, I've often been hired to come and play a version of me. Night in the Museum, you know, that was me popping up and doing my shtick. It was a lot of it was ad-libbed, you know. The Simpsons, pure fun. Just a privilege to be asked. And then I said, you might as well write it. But, you know, great, brilliant. But no, I wouldn't put all those things in my oeuvre. I do, you know, 3 or 4 sitcoms, a couple of movies, and 5 stand-ups. That's what I'd say is mine. Yeah. And everything else was fun and, you know, collaborative and all that, and great, you know. But I don't sort of think I did that.
Could you picture going back to a traditional broadcaster again, to the BBC, to NBC? I mean,
I never say never. Honestly, I've never taken a handcuffs deal in my life. I haven't got one with Netflix. They get first look now because it's great. It's perfect for me. That might change. You never know. You never know. You know.
So it's not as though you've turned your back on the traditional media, the legacy broadcasters.
Not at all.
It's just
not at all. You know, I still get offers, and some of them are great. And I go, usually it's because I'm busy, or that's not quite right for me, or I often suggest someone better than it for me, which is always shocking for me to hear. But no, it's well, anything can happen. You never know.
We'll have time for a couple of questions in a moment, but I wanted to get a sense from you as a creator. What's your sort of creative heaven? Is it alone in your attic with a pencil, or where is it that your juices get flowing and you do what you do?
30,000 feet on free champagne. There's nothing like it. I know that I've got 6 or 7 hours where I can't get a phone call or be wound up by an email or go on Twitter.
Right.
And the altitude and champagne. That's where I wrote all the sad bits.
Yeah. I have loved to cry.
Yeah, I've cried at The Godfather before on a plane. That's something to do.
And there's long haul flights. If you're going to Australia, then all the better that you can have something.
Exactly.
All that unbroken time to work.
Yeah. So it's that running for the same sort of reasons. The endorphins kick in. You can't. There's no distractions, and that's the thing. When you do it yourself, if I work 3 hours a day, right? 2.5 hours is admin. It really is. It's crazy. So those days are gone when you're just writing for you and hope it gets made. You know it gets made, and you've got all this other shit going on. So
maybe that answers my next question, which is if I flip that around and say, what is your creative hell? Is that working in committee, a writer's room?
No. Again, if I was there, that's fun. But I want to be able to. I disassociate myself. What I wouldn't do, what I don't want to do, is be semi in charge and take the blame. I don't want to completely. Absolutely. Either walk away and not give a fuck about it, right? Or if my name's on it, this is how we're doing it. You know. But no. I think. A deadline I don't like. I don't. They say, we want another one. We want it in 3rd of June. I go no. Anything. I try and rule stress out of my life, which is really stressful.
There's irony, right?
Well, I think you've got to turn things down. Yeah. I think people think they can't turn things down because it might go away tomorrow. Well, I'll tell you what. If you do everything, it will go away tomorrow.
I think we have time for just a couple of questions. If someone right here.
Thanks. Hi Ricky. A lot of your writing was obviously co-writing with Stephen Merchant. And I just wondered how that was different to the way you work now, whether it's something you enjoyed or whether you like the soul.
Well, I think, yeah, when you collaborate, I've collaborated with Stephen Merchant, Matthew Robinson, David Kep, Carl Pilkington, and it's always the same really, because you come up with ideas and it's having someone to bounce off, and you should still have that. You should still have someone there to bounce off, and that's all you need, just someone to, you need to say things out loud. Because if you just type in your bedroom, you type it all right, then you get to filming and you've cast it, the first time you hear it, this is shit, this can't be said. And you've got to realise that everything is to be performed. It's not like a novel, you know, where what you write is what they read. Everything's to be performed. There's still that, even if you get a final edit, right, and you've auteured it, there's still 60 people involved. There's still a filter to go through. So you have to make sure it's meant to be performed and heard. And I think that's the important thing, that you've heard it before you get to directing it. And because when you're writing, I know I'm writing for me to direct it, so it's easier. So my screenplays, if I handed those over to the director, he'd panic. Because he wouldn't know, but I know what it means because I know I'm directing it, so it's easier. I also cast as I go along, so I don't get surprises anymore. So I know they can do that. I know what I'm writing for. And that's why usually the second series is the best. Because you went in, you did your thing in your head, you cast it, and now you know all about the cast. Whereas with Afterlife, because I've been around for a while, I cast it before I'd written it. I knew who was going to play the parts. So it was easier. So again, I make life easy for myself.
Decrease the stress.
Yeah.
One more. Over here.
Hi, Ricky.
Hi.
If there was a particular response or emotion that you were specifically trying to elicit from your audience, or that you were motivated to elicit, what would that be?
Well, it's a tricky one because comedy is an intellectual pursuit. A joke is a magic trick, and there's sometimes only one way to do that. Whereas I think drama and a mixture of drama and comedy, if it's done well and it's realistic, it has an emotional effect as well. And if you can do both, I think you're home and dry. If you can, and that was the thing that worried me doing this, because I thought this is going to be quite tricky, that they're going to be laughing and then something terrible is going to happen, and vice versa. But then I thought, well, no, that's what real life is. That's what real life is. We're having a laugh, then we get a terrible email, or we find a lump. That's the end. That's the day ruined. So to try and do that within half an hour is the trick. But as long as everything's motivated and real, and you care about those characters, you can laugh and cry at the same time. And people do it all the time. It's just that some people think, well, this is too much for them. They're not going to be able to take it. Why are we second guessing how good an audience are, how clever they are? Why are we doing that? Why are we worried about words that we know they're using in the factory and in the school? Why is it too much on telly? It's not. Why are we? Just put it out there. Put it out there. Do your best, thoughtfully and honestly, and someone somewhere will go, oh, that's me, or I've never seen that before, or that's brilliant. They will. Not everyone, but enough.
So just to close here, if I'm correct, you studied philosophy as a student, is that right?
Yeah.
And now you've got a stand-up tour called Super Nature, in which you talk about nature. In 100 words or less, if you can, what is Ricky Gervais's philosophy of life?
This is a holiday. We don't exist for 13.5 billion years. Then we have 80, 90, 100 years of consciousness, introspection, joy, fun, laughter, wine, cheese, friends. And then we die, and we never exist again. So fucking enjoy it.
And on that beautiful note, ladies and gentlemen.